if I have something I want to say, I'll say it, and I don't really care.
So, you're going into 9th grade at McCaskey, right? Mm-hmm. How long have you lived in Lancaster? You used to live in Buffalo, right?
It's gonna be 4 years, I think, maybe. Yeah, 4.
4 years now?
Yeah, it's gonna be 4 years.
And how did you end up as a spoken word poet?
I went to Lincoln, and there was a curriculum where we had to learn poetry, like we were forced to. And I like I had a small voice. I was never the type to stand up in front of an audience, you know. I'm like, I like that. And then my teacher, Miss Bell, she had us write a lot of poems, like a Where I'm From poem. That was my first poem I've ever written. And I'm like, I like that. Like, I like it. And then we had to, like, perform in front of the class. I was nervous because I've never performed in it. But I liked the rush, you know, the adrenaline, you can say. And then how I actually got into, like, doing poetry slams, there was the Boys and Girls Club over there, and I met Ty Gant. He's my poetry coach. And he wanted to get together a group of students to make a team to compete, but it never really worked out. I went to Lincoln again, we had to do poetry. And then they made a poetry club, which Ty Gant wanted to put another team. And that's when we competed. I was one of the consistent ones again. Like, there was me, Sony, and this girl, Paola. They were 6th graders. I was an 8th grader, so much more mature.
Yeah.
But they're amazing poets. And we competed at my first poetry slam at Lincoln. We didn't get through, but it was an experience, so that's how I did it. And then I got an opportunity to perform at the Fulton.
Okay.
At the Fulton Theater. I did a poem there.
So what exactly does a spoken word poet do? What does that mean exactly? Do you write your own poetry and then kind of memorize it and speak it, or do you use other people's poems, or is it a combination?
I write it in a notebook or in my phone. I edit it, and then I say it out loud a couple of times. I memorize it, and then whenever there's an open mic, which I've done before a lot, I'll perform them.
What are some of the things that you like to write about?
You can write about anything, and it could be deep because my mom has been through shit. So I write about that and how, like, she's always been there for me. And at the Ware Center, I performed something at the Poetry Slam. It was about my dad. You know, my mom and my dad went through, like, a divorce, but they're back together. That's something you could write about. You could write about anything.
Is it hard at all sharing that kind of stuff with other people? Like,
sometimes. You know, like at the Ware Center, I asked my dad. He's an overthinker, so most of the things that I would say would be, like, offensive, but it wasn't. He was like, it's fine. Like, I didn't read it to him until I performed it. And he's in the audience crying. But, like, in the end, it was fine, you know. And I ended that poem with so much love.
So have people been generally supportive? I mean, it seems kind of, I know for a lot of people, you think poetry is kind of a strange thing for people to...
It's hard to believe.
Be into.
Some family members, they're, like, judgmental. They're judgmental. They talk shit. Like, some of my poems, like, most of my poems are very mature. Like, for my age, when I was 13, I wrote about, like, standing up to people and how to be, like, out there and not be so small, you know? And some family members would be like, why are you saying that? Like, you're not supposed to say that. Stay in your place.
Ooh.
That's why I wrote that poem. The first line, your mouth is always getting you in trouble, they say. Watch the attitude. You know what I'm going to say? This mouth you despise so much is who I am. That's the beginning, but there's so much more. Yeah. But most of them are very, like, some of them are supportive, which I like, but most of them, they're very judgmental. They don't like the stuff that I put in my poems because they believe that a child should stay in their place, which, like, is true, but, like, sometimes you just gotta be like, no, like, no.
So this is like an outlet for you to kind of let that stuff out.
Yeah, because I was never allowed to, like, say what I wanted to say without being yelled at. Because some of the things that I would say would be hard on people that I'm saying it to. Being called disrespectful. I mean, I'm disrespectful. Like, when I, like, most times, like, if I need to say something, it'll sound disrespectful, but it's the truth, and the truth hurts.
So it gives you a way to say things in front of a crowd that you couldn't necessarily...
I try to write some things that some people are afraid to write and perform and publish. say what you gotta say without being scared.
It's a mature attitude for your age.
Yeah, I'm only 14.
I know, that's awesome. What exactly happens at a poetry slam? Like, what's it like when you go?
Even though we're competing against each other, we're going head to head, we're all one big family, you know, so there's no judgmental people, you know, there's no filter, so you can say whatever you want, but it has to be in the poem.
Yeah.
And there's judges there. I don't really know how it happens, but they count up your points. There's group poems, singular poems, and I think 60 seconds or 90 seconds. And there's multiple rounds. So one round, I think it would be like group poems, singular poems, 60 seconds, like lightning ones. And then they count up the points, and they do like the medium range thingy. I don't really know how it goes because I don't like to ask about that. I just want to do it.
You don't worry about the points. You just worry about
the poetry, you know. You go up. That was the first time I ever competed in a poetry slam, you know. I had to read it on paper, you know, my little 13-year-old self didn't know what to do. Like, I've never been in a poetry slam before, you know, at that time. And everybody was so supportive. Like, when you mess up, you snap. Like, it's respectful. And that's how you support each other. Like, you go off, everybody gives you a hug. It's not like, oh, she did bad.
Oh,
no,
great.
you did good. Like, that's basically what happens. There's a lot of music. There's like a DJ. It's really fun. It's like a big party.
How do you prepare for a performance? Like, if you have something like that coming up, what's kind of your process that you go through?
Read it a lot. Read it a lot. I mean, I don't usually try to memorize it. If I have to memorize, I will. But I always have like my phone next to me just in case. But I prepare myself. Like, I write it out a lot. The same poem, write it out. I edit. So I start off with like the stuff that I wanted to write down, my thoughts, and I add and like subtract the lines, you know, that I don't want to make it sound good. Because once you write, it may not sound good like coming out your mouth. Because the one I wrote just now, or like a couple days ago, it sounded good in my head when I read it. But when I read it out loud, I'm like, no, you know.
It's not right.
So that's how like I write it. I work on my projection, I work on my diction, and I work on slowing down because I'm fast with talking. Like when I read myself, because I'm nervous.
Yeah.
That's what my mom tells me. She's like, you're talking too fast. You're talking too fast. So you need to slow down, get your point across, because I can't hear a damn thing you're saying.
Is your family like your audience at first? Do you run things by them? And
Sometimes I like to keep it a surprise. Like,
do you find that you're getting less nervous? Like, how are the nerves the first time you ever did a poetry slam compared to like the most recent thing that you've done?
Crazy. Like, they're like, you're gonna do bad. Like, I'm like, no, don't say that. Like, but now the nervousness like goes away. Like, hey, I'm up here. I gotta deal with it. You know, like I'm up here. Read your poem. You'll be fine. People are supportive. You know, that's like my mindset.
What was the show and your role in the youth theater?
I played Bernice Reagan Johnson, and she was a civil rights like mover. It was with the Albany movement.
Okay.
That. And it's basically about like Black Lives Matter, like police brutality, and like how people got locked up just for being their one color. This October we're gonna do it again. We're practicing October till April, and we're gonna do it again. More lines, more music, more scenes. In that show, I got arrested for doing nothing. Like, me and my husband, he ran to the front, right? And he was like, whatever you do, don't go let go of my hand. And then I get arrested for nothing. There was a big riot. But basically, that was just about the Albany movement in Georgia.
That was more acting, right? Like memorizing lines,
yeah,
that kind of stuff?
Never acted
You've never
before.
done that before?
Like, I was like, whatever you do, you're not going to have your script on stage. Like, this is the first thing you're going to do. You're going to practice. You're going to write down your lines a lot, like you do with your poems, and you're going to do it.
All right, so you're starting 9th grade. A lot of new things going on starting high school, more poetry stuff. Where do you see yourself in the future?
Like, I went to JP to, like, chase a dream, like, do more acting, more poetry, more everything that has to do with the arts. But then there's another thing that will actually have me be like financially successful in the future, like being a doctor for babies. Like, I really want to do that, but like at the same time, what if I don't do this? I won't have my big dreams, you know.
Yeah.
So like, and I want to be a photographer too, but that's gonna be on the side. Like, I'm not gonna, invest my whole life into that, you know, that's going to be on the side just to do it. And, like, I like doing makeup, so I like doing
So you're all over the place.
Yeah,
you got all kinds of dreams.
And
do you have a lot of, like you said, a lot of times you'll pull your phone out if you're inspired and kind of speak stuff in you. Do you find you have a lot of, like, half-finished stuff, or do you start a lot of things that are kind of floating around in your phone that never get done?
Floating around. Like, I have so many poems that are not done, which I want to finish, but sometimes you can't really find the rest of the inspiration to make you finish that poem. So some of them are pretty short. Say what you gotta say because, like, you're gonna get your point across.